The galaxy was on fire. Planet after planet had fallen. The enemy called the Krill moved like a dark wave, destroying everything. No one could stop them. No one had hope anymore. The last few soldiers of the free worlds were trapped on a broken moon called Vi-Rex-9. Commander Saran stood in the dust, watching the sky burn. His soldiers were tired, wounded, and afraid. They had no more ships, no more help, and no way to escape. Their last message to the galaxy was simple: we are finished. The Krill were closing in. Their war machines roared in the distance. Saran could feel the ground shaking. He knew it was over. His people would die, and no one would remember them. He closed his eyes. Then something strange happened. A new sound broke through the noise. Not thunder, not a weapon, something else. A deep rumble from the sky. Lights flashed above the clouds. The Krill stopped. They looked up. Even their machines paused. From the clouds. Something fell. Not bombs. Not meteors. Ships. Large, black, silent ships. They didn't carry any flags. They didn't answer hails. But they moved like they owned the stars. And they dropped fast straight into the battlefield. Everyone froze. Even Saran held his breath. Then came the sound. A voice, clear, cold, and powerful, echoed across all coms. Humanity has returned. No one had heard that name in 100 years. And for the first time in a long time, Saran felt something he thought was gone forever. Hope. No one moved. Not the defenders, not the Krill. All eyes stared at the strange ships that had fallen from the sky. The air felt heavy, like the galaxy itself was holding its breath. From the smoke and dust, tall armored figures stepped onto the battlefield. Their suits were black, marked with silver lines that pulsed like energy. Their helmets had no faces, only a glowing strip of blue light. They didn't speak, they didn't shout. They just walked calmly, slowly, like they had all the time. In the world, Commander Saran had never seen anything like them. One of his officers whispered, "Who are they?" Saran didn't answer. He didn't need to. Everyone already knew. Humans. The stories had said they vanished after the Great Wars, that they left the galaxy behind. Some believed they were gone forever. Others believed they never existed at all. But now, they were real, and they had returned. The Krill finally reacted. Their front line pushed forward, unsure but aggressive. One of their large beasts and feet tall, with armored skin and burning eyes, charged toward the nearest human. The human didn't run. He raised one arm, a light blinked on his wrist. The beast stopped, its body locked, frozen in mid. For a moment, there was silence. Then the beast collapsed, not broken, not burned, just shut down. No fire, no noise, just precision. The rest of the Krill hesitated. The humans began to move. Not fast, not wild, just smooth, direct, like they'd done this 1,000 times before. Their steps left no sound. Their weapons made no flash. But every time one raised their arm, something on the battlefield changed. A machine failed. A weapon stopped working. A path opened. It was not war. It was control. One of the humans turned toward Saran. His voice came through the soft and calm. "You should stay behind us now." That was all. He didn't wait for permission. None of them did. They moved ahead, and Saran followed, not because he trusted them, but because something deep inside told him the truth. These were not the humans from the old stories. They were something more. And whatever they were here to do, it had already begun. The battlefield had changed, but not because of the weapons or explosions. It was the silence. A strange, deep silence had spread across the ruined moon. The Krill had always moved like a storm, loud, wild, unstoppable, but now, they were quiet. They were waiting, watching, afraid. Saran had never seen them like this. He stood behind the line of armored humans, unsure of what to do. His people had fought the Krill for years, and barely survived. But now the enemy, who never feared anyone, had slowed their attack. Their machines kept a distance. Their soldiers didn't charge. Why? Because of the humans. They didn't roar into battle. They didn't speak loud words. They just kept walking one step at a time toward the Krill front. With every step, more enemy units pulled back. It was like watching shadows move through fire. Saran noticed something else. The humans weren't just fighting. They were watching everything, scanning every move, studying the Krill. One of them touched the side of his helmet and murmured something. Saran caught only a few words. "They're adapting. Begin phase 2. Before he could ask what that meant, the humans split into smaller groups. They moved with perfect timing. Each one had a purpose, a position, and a role. They didn't need orders. They already knew what to do. They had done this before many times. In the distance, a Krill carrier, large as a city tower, began to rise. Its engines shook the ground. Saran's eyes widened. That ship could level the entire moon, but the humans didn't panic. 3 of them vanished into the smoke. Seconds passed. No sound, no light. Then the carrier blinked, just blinked. Engines stopped. Its body shook once, and it came crashing down in silence. No blast, no fire, just failure. Saran stared. That kind of precision was impossible. No species had tech like that. Not even the oldest races of the galaxy. How were they doing it? Beside him, one of the human soldiers paused. She turned her helmet slightly, as if sensing his thoughts. "We studied them," she said calmly. We learned what they fear, and we became it. Saran's mouth was dry. He wanted to ask what that meant, but deep down, he already knew. The Krill feared nothing, except the humans. Because long ago, when they ruled the galaxy with terror, someone had already stood in their way, and it wasn't gods, it was Earth. The stories weren't myths, they were warnings. And now, those warnings had returned stronger, smarter, and silent. Saran looked out over the battlefield. The fight wasn't over, but for the first time, he believed in something more than just survival. He believed in victory. The stars above Varix 9 were quiet again, but the silence no longer felt empty. It felt watched, as if something was returning to its place in the galaxy, something forgotten, something powerful. Saran walked among the ruins with questions piling in his mind. The humans who hadn't spoken more than a few words had already changed the course of a hopeless war. But it wasn't just their strength or their machines that unsettled him. It was the way they moved, as if they had seen this future before, as if this war was only a part of something larger they had already prepared for. He was led through the remains of a broken outpost by one of the humans, an older one, his armor marked with faded silver stars on the shoulder. He walked with the confidence of a man who had seen galaxies rise and fall. His voice was calm, but carried weight. "My name is Colonel Reeves," he said, stopping before a holotable flickering with battle maps. "I'm going to explain what you need to know." Saran nodded, still uncertain. "You've fought the Krill for how long?" the colonel asked. 7 standard years, Saran replied. "We lost more than we saved." Reeves nodded slowly. "And we've been watching for 15 from the edge of known space. We saw your struggle, we saw every world fall, and we waited." "Why?" Saran asked. "Why didn't you come sooner?" Reeves looked up, his expression unreadable behind his helmet's soft glow. "Because you weren't ready, and neither were we." He tapped a glowing control, and the table changed. Images flickered, star systems, ancient ruins, signs of long-lost civilizations. Then something darker, symbols, Krill, structures. But in the middle of it all was one thing Saran didn't recognize: an emblem. A circle of stars with one single blue dot at the center. Earth, Reeves said simply. "We didn't vanish, we stepped back. After the Great Wars, we realized something. Every time we fought, we won. But every time we stayed, we became part of the problem." Saran stared. "So you left. We left to grow. In silence, in exile, we expanded where no one could follow. Learned things even the ancient empires feared. We didn't come to fight. We came to end this, correct it. The 12 Krill aren't just a threat. They're a result. A result of what?" Reeves paused, then said, "Of what happens when the galaxy forgets that peace must be protected not by words alone, but by those willing to act when no one else will." Saran looked at the hologram. The human fleet wasn't just large. It was hidden, precise, waiting like a coiled spring. "They're not just here to push the Krill back, are they?" Saran said. "No," Reeves replied. "We're here to finish what we started. We've studied the Krill. We know where they came from. We know what they fear, and we know how to stop them for good." As the holo faded, Saran felt a strange chill. The humans hadn't just returned as warriors, they had returned as architects of change. And this time, they weren't asking for permission. The sky above Varix 9 shimmered with the soft glow of orbiting. Ships silent, invisible to most, but very real. Their presence could be felt like a quiet pressure in the air. Below, in the ruins of what once was a stronghold, the future of the war was being written in whispers and strategy. Saran stood beside Colonel Reeves in a narrow war chamber carved into the rocks. Holograms floated before them, showing patterns of movement: Krill outposts, hidden fleets, supply routes. But what caught Saran's eyes wasn't the enemy. It was the human fleet, cloaked, perfectly positioned, waiting. "You've been planning this for a long time," Saran said, his voice low. Reeves didn't look at him. "We've been preparing since the day we disappeared." Saran stepped closer. "Then why do you need us now?" Reeves finally turned. "Because this war doesn't end with a single strike. It ends when the galaxy stands together, not in fear, but with understanding. You've been fighting with hope. That matters." Saran wasn't sure what to feel. Gratitude, confusion, suspicion. The humans were different. Calm, focused. They never raised their voices, never moved without reason. Even now, when victory seemed within reach, they spoke with the patience of engineers, not soldiers. Reeves brought up a star map. In the center was a red zone marked with a pulsing symbol. "The Krill home system," he said. "We've identified it. Their command intelligence is located deep beneath their third planet. If we can neutralize that, their network will collapse. Their coordination will fail." Saran blinked. "But no fleet has ever reached that far." Reeves gave a small nod. "Because no fleet was designed to go unseen." Saran stared at the map. The plan was bold, maybe too bold. A deep insertion carried out in full silence, using technology the rest of the galaxy had never imagined. And somehow, the humans believed it could work. "They'll defend that world with everything," Saran said. "They already are," Reeves replied. "But they're defending against the war they expect, not the one we're bringing." A moment of silence passed. Then Reeves looked at him closely. "Your people know the outer routes. You've fought on the edge of their domain. If we go in together, we increase the chance of success. You want our help? Saran said slowly. I want your choice. Reeves answered. Saran didn't speak for a long time. He watched the flickering light of the star map. It was more than a plan. It was a chance, not just to fight, but to change. Everything the Krill believed they had already won. The galaxy believed it was already too late, but now there was a new possibility. The return of the humans hadn't just shaken the enemy. It had reminded the stars that some stories aren't over. Saran looked up. What do we do first? Reeves smiled. Just a little. We remind them that silence doesn't mean surrender. It means we were listening. Outside, the sky darkened again. But this time, it wasn't with fear. It was with purpose. The stars over the Krill homeworld flickered unnaturally, as if space itself had begun to bend. Deep in orbit, hidden within a field of false readings and gravitational echoes, the Allied fleet held its breath. Hundreds of cloaked ships, silent and invisible, drifted into perfect alignment. Not one light flickered. Not one signal leaked. It was the calm before something that hadn't happened in 1,000 years. The return of Earth, not as a myth, but as a force of reckoning. Saran stood aboard the lead vessel, a human flagship called Eos. It felt more like a machine built from thought than metal. Everything was seamless, soundless, alive. Colonel Reeves stood beside him, watching the dark planet rotate beneath them. They don't know we're here, he said quietly. They believe no one would dare come this far. And yet here, we are, Saran replied, eyes locked on the swirling surface of the enemy's world. Reeves nodded. Because you chose to stand with us. Down below, deep beneath the surface, lay the Krill Command, an organic network of thought, instinct, and purpose. Not a king, not a council, but something older. Something that had once feared the humans enough to hide when they vanished. Now, it would have to face them again. The plan was simple, but impossible. Strike the command core without ever being seen. Trigger a disruption that would ripple across every Krill mind. Not with destruction, but with disconnection. Without their hiveling, the Krill would become scattered, confused, uncertain, vulnerable. The fleet moved, no war horns, no dramatic charge, just precision. Small dropships folded through space, entering the planet's atmosphere like whispers. Each one carried human operatives paired with resistance guides, veterans who knew the terrain, the tunnels, the scars of war. Saran led one of them, not because he had to, but because he couldn't stay behind. He had to see it through. They passed through layers of rock, through tunnels older than memory. Strange symbols marked the walls, reminders that the Krill had not started as monsters. They had become that way, slowly, through fear, through hunger for control. And then, at last, they reached it. The core, it pulsed like a living heart, surrounded by energy and strange light. Not defended by walls or weapons, but by thought waves of pressure that could break a weak mind. The humans stood firm. They planted something. Not a bomb, a signal. Soft, steady, a pulse that began to spread. The core hesitated, twitched, faded, and in that moment, across the stars, every Krill suddenly paused. Ships drifted off course. Troops lost formation. Weapons fell silent. In space, on every front, the tide turned. The galaxy didn't understand what had just happened, but they would. Because in that quiet victory, a new truth echoed through every channel. Every signal, every surviving world. Humanity had not come to reclaim power. They had come to restore balance. And this time, they would not vanish. They would watch. They would guide. They would wait in silence if needed, because peace wasn't something the galaxy could keep alone. But now, it would never have to.